Welcome back to SnowRunner, guys, and before we get any further, today we're going to be talking about a very interesting desert racing game that's also an open world game, and it bears some very interesting resemblances to SnowRunner. Now, there's a lot to kind of go into detail on here, but stick with me through the rest of the video, and we're going to try and break it all down. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we get any further on. The truck I am using in the video right now is Frog's new Titan, and it is one of his Patreon builds, and I will leave a link in the description box down below to where you can access his Patreon and get access to vehicles like, for example, this Nissan Titan. It is also, of course, worth noting that since this truck is fully branded, it is only available on PC. Now, the game we are talking about here is called Dakar Desert Rally, and it's being developed by Saber Porto. Now, look at some of the screenshots that I'm going to put on the screen right now. These are absolutely beautiful. Just look at how incredibly rich the environment itself is, and also the detail in the reflections in the water. Now, I also did want to give a nod to Maine Mudrunner because they were actually the one that turned me on to this news, and when I saw them talking about it, I was like, whoa, this looks really, really interesting, and it had me genuinely excited, so I dug deeper, I did a little bit of research, and I found the actual site for the game. Now, there isn't a ton of information on it. It's essentially a splash page that you can look through. Essentially, you can scroll through it, but there is a trailer there, and there's some screenshots as well. Now, obviously, this game is completely and totally separate from the Runner franchise, i.e. Mudrunner and SnowRunner, being that it is a part of the Dakar series, but here's the interesting thing. If they're being developed by studios under the same umbrella that are most likely going to share information and share technology and things like that, this game could potentially pave the way for huge improvements in the Runner series later on down the road, both in visuals as well as physics, and also how more high-speed situations are handled in the game, and how they are implemented into the game, because this is, of course, a open-world racing game, whereas everything in the Runner series so far has been largely based around hauling and slow-paced driving. Now, if we look at this photo here that I took directly from the game's website, we can see that it is coming in 2022 to PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, as well as Steam and Epic Games, and once again, it is being developed by Saber. And if you look at some of these other screenshots, it starts to make you think, it starts to make you go, wait a minute. What if the idea of quote-unquote Sand Runner was actually a thing? I mean, if you look at these landscapes, they're absolutely incredibly beautiful. And again, they would have had to have put in so much more work on this game engine to make it function well in a high-speed way in comparison to the way it functions at high speed in SnowRunner, because when you think about the high-speed driving physics in SnowRunner, they feel really good in low-speed situations, like, for example, what we're doing right now. We're crawling along a low-speed trail, but when you start to get up to speed on something like a racetrack, they start to, I wouldn't say fall apart, but at the same time, they do in some ways start to actually fall apart, and I think the reason for that is because the vehicles in this game weren't really designed to be driven over a certain speed, and the physics engine wasn't really designed to handle those speeds once they exceeded a certain level. Now, what they'll be able to do in Dakar, I don't know. I'm really curious to see how that game feels and how it plays when it releases, because once again, if this is essentially a future test bed for features and dynamics that might appear in a new Runner game later on down the road, I don't know, it could be a really interesting way for them to experiment with new features for the game. However, do keep in mind that this is all speculation based on things and little details that I have picked up from my own research into the upcoming Dakar game, which is slated for release later this year. This is not confirmed information. Once again, this is all my personal opinion and things that I would personally like to see happen in relation to the Runner series. Another extremely interesting detail is this game will feature bikes. The upcoming Dakar game will feature motorcycles. And we all know that, for one, there were no motorcycles in SnowRunner, and when people tried to mod them into the game, it seemed like the physics engine didn't really like it very much. However, when you watch some of the trailer footage with these dirt bikes flying around, it really does look like they've gotten a good feel for the motorcycle physics dialed in. Now, of course, I haven't played the game, and I have absolutely no idea if or when I would be able to play the game, but then again, going back to some of the gameplay footage that I've seen, the motorcycle and two-wheeled vehicle physics don't look all that bad at all. They look pretty fluid, actually. And then, of course, the first place that my mind goes is, okay, well, if that appears in a Runner series game way later on down the road, does that mean we could potentially be... And when I say way later on down the road, I mean, like, you know, years down the road. Could we potentially be seeing them testing out the ability for us to use motorcycles as scout vehicles? I have absolutely no idea, but that would be a really, really cool game dynamic if they were able to get the physics right. Another thing that got me really excited looking through the game's website was seasons and dynamic weather. They literally say that they are going to feature all 4 seasons, a full day and night cycle, and like environmental elements like sandstorms, blazing sunlight, rain, snow, deep mud, and that you will literally have to overcome the elements at every single turn. Now, what does that sound like? A lot of that sounds like, you know, things that we've seen in the Runner series before, or at least elements of that. Obviously, you know, MudRunner and SnowRunner didn't have things like sandstorms, but once again, they did have the snow and they did have the mud, or at least SnowRunner had the snow, and MudRunner and SnowRunner both had the mud. So will the mud in the Dakar game actually feel like the mud from SnowRunner and MudRunner? Once again, we will have to wait and see. Now, the more I read into this game, the more I become interested. And it was one of those games where, you know, I looked at it on the surface and I was like, oh, I mean, it looks interesting. It looks okay. I don't know if I'm all that, you know, interested in the topic specifically. And then I did a little bit more digging, and the more digging that I did, the more interested I became. Now, let me know in the comments section down below how you guys are feeling about this particular announcement, and also how you guys are feeling about some of the things we've talked about and speculated about today. Do you have your own speculations regarding where this series may go in the future and how the Dakar game may relate to it? Once again, let me know any and all of those thoughts and opinions on this topic in the comments section down below. Now, they haven't given us a ton of information on exactly what vehicles will be in the game. However, on their website, they did say that there will be over 150 vehicles to drive and collect from 5 different categories: cars, bikes, trucks, quads, and SSVs. Now, the main category that has me, well, I should say the 2 main categories that have me really excited out of that entire list are the bikes and the quads, but of course, all of the other categories have me really excited as well. Now, I'm really curious to see what kind of trucks they have on offer here. Now, granted, obviously there's going to be a lot of really large Dakar race trucks, which, if you're not familiar with Dakar trucks, imagine a semi on gigantic tires and axles with enough supplies and spares to go for just about forever, absolutely bombing through the landscape. And that's essentially what a Dakar race truck is. So to start wrapping everything up, I am insanely excited to learn more about this game and see what all they reveal about it as we get closer to the release, because I'm sure that since we have a long way to go, we have a lot more stuff to see, and they will have a lot more stuff to share with us, you know, long before we get close to that release date. It's definitely a game that I'm going to pay a lot more attention to, and it's also a game that I'm curious to play when it actually releases and see what the vehicles feel like to drive. Now, I'm also wondering, you know, if you come from a background in the Runner series, is this a game that you're going to jump into and go, oh, this feels familiar, or is it a game that you're going to jump into and go, holy crap, this is entirely different from everything that I've felt before? And again, I go back and forth on that. I really, really do, because in my mind, you know, I want it to feel familiar, but at the same time, I also want it to break new ground using this game engine and really break new ground with what this game engine can do, you know, providing that they are able to push it to an entirely new level. So once again, let me know any other thoughts and opinions that you guys may have about this upcoming game in the comment section down below. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on. And I will see y'all next time. Talk to y'all later, and I hope you guys enjoyed.